Welcome to the Inside Silverstone podcast, a business-focused podcast covering all things tech, engineering and innovation. Hosted by me, Chris Broome, a huge tech, motorsport and gaming fan, and also the owner of Longhurst, a firm of lifestyle financial planners and independent financial advisors located in Silverstone, Northamptonshire. This is a series of unscripted and unpolished conversations with leading business owners, thought leaders and high-tech talent where we discuss their experiences within the Silverstone business and motorsport region. We will also be asking them to share their knowledge, insight and their thoughts on the future just for you. If you're looking to learn more about the Silverstone high growth region and commercially connect with like-minded peers, you've definitely come to the right place. Welcome to Inside Silverstone. Welcome to the next edition of Inside Silverstone, where we are recording a very special Mastermind session, number 4, called Women in Technology. Welcome to the show. As you can see, we have a slightly different backdrop today with a cyclist here. Massive thank you to the Silverstone Sports Engineering Hub for hosting us today, Rob Lewis, Tracy and the team for putting us up. What we're going to do today is have a good natter and gas bag about women in technology. This episode is being aired during International Women's Week, which is clearly a very, very important time. So what we'll do to begin with is we'll do some introductions, and I'm going to start over here. So who are you and what do you do?
So I'm Heather Cowley. I have a really long job title. I'm a Digital Delivery and Cyber Engagement Manager for the Office of the Northamptonshire Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner. And breathe.
Okay, and so in a quick nutshell, what is that? What do you do?
So there's 2 parts to my role. So digital delivery, I look after digital strategy, technical projects for fire and police services in Northamptonshire. Yeah. And then the second half, cyber engagement, I go out to small, medium-sized businesses and talk about why cybersecurity is important, why people need to take note. They tend to think sleepy rural Northamptonshire, nothing's going to happen, it doesn't happen to them, and I'm kind of trying to change that message.
Cool. Who are you?
Hi, I'm Dolores Sanders. I'm the Chief Information Officer for TotalControlPro. We produce manufacturing technology to bring sort of up-to-date technology more available, affordable and accessible for manufacturers.
Boom. And who are you?
My name is Rebecca Gill. I'm a learning disabilities nurse and I'm the founder of VR Therapies.
Okay, so just expand on that a bit more. So
VR Therapies is for virtual reality therapies. So we currently do community sessions, allowing people to go swimming with dolphins, we can go and travel space. There's lots of different things and benefits we can do with it, which I'll tell you more about later.
Amazing. And yourself?
So I'm Sally Povolotsky from EES Solutions, and I am, an engineering consultant, but I predominantly work in autonomy, connected, electrified and alternative powertrains and shared services. So we tend to design and develop whether it's a vehicle platform or a service or whatever. So I work with a lot of automotive and transport engineers, and we deliver that kind of stuff.
Okay.
With wheels. Yeah.
With wheels.
Yeah.
Cool. So I think the first question I'm going to ask, I think, is one of my favourites, which is about the genesis of technology and why you're involved in it. So this is going to be open up to the forum. So why are you involved in technology? Why do you run a technology business? Live recording. Why? Why are you involved in tech?
I think technology is developed through needs. So I run a company that serves manufacturers. I looked at what does the manufacturers need, and the technology was sort of derived to deliver those requirements. So it wasn't a sense like, I studied some levels of science at school, but I actually studied psychology at university. But I studied things like connectionism and neurolinguistics. So I understood the function of the brain that we're now looking at developing our AI technology and that side of things. So it was kind of, I've always come at things from the people perspective. Yeah. What's the problem? What's the needs that we require? And then how can we match the technology and find the real experts and connect them all together? So although I'm in technology, I am by no means a technology expert in the detail or the granular of sort of the latest developments.
Okay. And virtual reality. Where's that come from?
So obviously I've worked as a nurse all my life, and I've always been frustrated by the lack of access to the latest technology, and whether this is medical therapies or just games and fun and roller coasters and things like that. So with VR, obviously you can do the things that you wouldn't be able to do in normal life. And when I found the Swimming with Dolphins VR, I thought that would be perfect with hydrotherapy, kind of bringing together the two therapies, the traditional clinical ones with the new technology, and making it more fun and immersive. So we'll be able to be in the water swimming, and you'll have the dolphins all around you. And once I've found that idea, it's all just spiraled since then. I've found out about such amazing technology and different immersive healthcare. I'm learning all the lingo. I'm looking into using biofeedback to be able to control the games with our breathing. So depending on how anxious and stressed you are, it will affect the game and the process.
Amazing.
We've got different ones that can help children with autism and all kinds of areas. People they forget their pain and they smile more and they breathe easier, and it's seeing that as a nurse is amazing, and that's what's motivated me to get into tech. But I still don't think of myself as working in technology, because we're a social enterprise and we work with people with disabilities. We're more on the healthcare side, but it's starting to bring that digital divide, and yeah.
Amazing. Truly, truly amazing. Cyber.
So I never started out wanting to be in IT, let alone cyber.
Okay.
It just kind of happened. I went down the more traditional route, I suppose. My dad is an engineer. I was always right beside him. I was so curious about how and why things worked. I literally, if I got my hand on a screwdriver, I'd literally take anything apart. Absolutely anything. My parents got rather annoyed with me when I was little. But I kind of progressed. I went into cabling first of all, and I laid data cabling all around the world, which was really interesting, and then kind of transitioned over onto IT. So I started off in networking, and I think that just for something that Dolores said, those softer skills like the problem solving, the adaptability, those are the skills that I pride myself on, and I think really lend themselves well to engineering or tech in general. And they're the kind of things that are downplayed a lot. So I think if you've got a naturally curious mind, you're going to do really, really well in a technology career.
Absolutely.
Sally, EV, vehicles, alternatives? Stuff.
Yeah.
Where's it come from?
So equally, it wasn't where I started. So I started in science, so physiology and genetics, and then, but I've always been naturally curious. So I have a dad who's really hands-on and really good at practical stuff, and it became clear that I didn't quite have that gene, but I was really good at looking at things from like 10,000 foot and saying, but actually, if you did this, this, and this, maybe this could happen. And then got involved in sort of developing my own strategies for off-road vehicles, and that's where I sort of started, big sort of 4x4s and Land Rovers, and eventually ended up at Jaguar Land Rover, but run as part of the Skunkworks team. So we were completely 8 people on the sidelines doing all the weird and wonderful stuff. And obviously, well, I had a claim to fame, but I don't know if I'm allowed it anymore, as they've been stripped of their royal titles. But it's but yeah, so my whole thing when it comes to tech is looking at what there is available, and actually I look at it more from the environmental perspective. So we could get ourselves in really big doggy doo-doo by just carrying on this path to just electrify everything. It's not the answer. So obviously my big breakthrough was looking at existing forms of transport and actually converting them. So that's when I did the electric E-Type, I did the electric Defender, and subsequent projects since then, because we can't go, as engineers, we have a responsibility, and with tech as well, we've got lots of disposability, lots of waste, lots of, I mean, obviously lithium and cobalt in a way is worse than mining for dead dinosaurs. So, one of my big things is fit, form and function. Does it fit what you actually need? Is the form as responsible as it can be, and does it perform a function that you actually need? So the world of EV, unfortunately, and the climate crisis has been politicised, which is never a good thing, because lots of knee-jerk big sound bites are being made. The delivery of those is completely different, and it's and that's where I suppose my passion is, and it's like you're saying about the soft skills. It's that looking at the problem, diagnosing the problem, looking at a solution, but it not necessarily being the first solution that someone's feeding you. Really analysing, and that's where that sort of comes in, is whilst I can now build stuff with my hands and not break things, it's really that analytical side of things of, is there a need for it, or are we just generating more waste, more big vehicles, transport? We need to have less, we need to consume less, but have things that are more, better function, use, share, and all that kind of stuff. All the funky words.
Absolutely. I think you just hit the nail on the head, really, in terms of, if we look at the stereotype of women, or girls even, it's, they can always multitask, they may have planned their wedding before they actually get out of high school, they may have done this and this, but actually if you take those stereotypes and flip them, we're good at looking into the future. We're good at saying what we've got right now is not the answer. It may be the answer right now, but what else could happen? What else is possible? And looking from different angles rather than being very focused or drawn into, this is the solution I'm going to work on, I'm going to keep going. And I think sometimes in technology, it is to find the answer, like a holy grail is what people look for, but actually finding lots of answers, offering them up and then discovering the best solution is a more effective way. But I just think we've been drawn into that very single-minded, slightly male type of delivery of a solution rather than looking at a broader sense of what purpose is there.
So you've used a really good word there, stereotypes, and so women in technology. This is what the title of this production is. So are there stereotypes? Have you encountered challenges, whether it be through schooling, education, career, business owners?
I've got a brilliant one. Someone refused to talk to me because I obviously wasn't the business owner. And I'm pretty sure that was purely just because I was a woman that answered the phone. Wow. And I was really, you're kidding me? So obviously I just put the phone down on them. But that was the one that stayed in my head. And I never thought that I would necessarily face the barriers. And I think they're quite subtle ones. Right. Obviously stereotypes exist. Everyone knows of the similar stereotypes for women and men and things like we're saying. But it's starting to become a little bit more clear to me now I'm working in the field, and I can see the difference and the representation when you're going to groups and seeing the lack of minorities, of women, with people with disabilities. And especially what my passion is, obviously people with disabilities, so when we're creating services and innovating products for them, we need to be employing people with disabilities and getting their feedback and input, not just the user research and their data, and then they get filed away and we're on to the next moneymaker.
Any other challenges?
Well, we developed the Tech Women solution through Digital Northampton because we looked at Digital Northampton just a year ago, and the photo that represented them was literally all pale and male, and none of us, there were other people involved, but it was like, why is that? And challenging that. And it's not just that the women weren't there, and I don't think it's necessarily that the men, it definitely isn't that the men don't, that is definitely opening up. But there's a thing about women in technology, I think we keep our light under the bushel, we don't shine, we don't promote ourselves, we don't say this is what we do, we're not the first up into the photographs or anything else. So the representation of women in technology is very low. It doesn't necessarily means they're not there, because they are. But we need to be more proactive in promoting what we're doing and where we are, so that we become that sort of light for others coming into it.
How as a community, how do we do that? Come on.
This is good.
Come on.
We do stuff like this.
Yeah. Attending podcasts, apparently.
There we are.
I think you're absolutely right. So I've never experienced what I would deem as some form of discrimination because I'm a woman in the career I'm in. Never. But I think that's because I've got bigger testicles than most men. So I think, and I think it's about how you present yourself when you first start. So obviously, I went in, bull in China shop, so in a way, quite masculine in the way I approached everything. I've been able to work with amazing men and amazing women, and, respected them all equally. But I think you're absolutely right. When it comes to who is put front and centre, when it comes to talking about stuff. So whilst I developed what was at the point the most famous car in the world, wasn't my face on the media. It was my boss, who was white and I love that pale male, who fitted the bill and wore the suits, and nobody wanted Marmite Sally out there, with her jeans, and the half sparky hair, because she might have slightly electrocuted herself in the process. Do you know what I mean? But it's kind of like, and yet, you know, I worked with an amazing group of people, and I think one of the things that women are very good at is very good at forming teams that are based on mutual respect. So for me, it didn't matter, you know, what the grade, because we were all graded in OEMs, like what the grade of the person was, whether it was literally, you know, spanner monkey all the way up to, you know, purchasing and sign off and senior directors. I didn't care who they were, because I spoke to every single one in exactly the same way. So I think when you unpeel the layer and you look in, whilst there's still a number differentiation of percentages of males versus female, and that's a whole nother discussion as to accessibility into the workplace, I've never experienced a discrimination issue inside my job. Now, the outside perception of maybe what a female engineer is, or protecting the status of an engineer generally, or, you know, understanding the wealth and growth that industry has for young people. You know, we have a lot of pale and male guys about to retire on good salaries, do you know what I mean? And you know, we need that next gen, and we need that diverse next gen. I think when it comes to diversity, I think that's a whole nother ball game. So in a lot of areas of engineering, that, you know, white necessarily isn't the predominant, you know, diversity in the group. So a lot of software engineering, stuff like that, it tends to be predominantly Indian, African, do you know what I mean? So we tend to have diversity, but they're in pockets and silos that aren't, again, seen whilst they deliver amazing work. But disability into the workplace is a whole nother ball game. And I think one of the things that society needs to do is look at those stakeholders and how we can engage them, because we're now designing transport solutions, and a lot of the people we are designing them for is giving people more accessibility, whether it's aged society, you know, mobility issues, all this kind of stuff. And there is stuff out there that will change people's lives in the future. Have we gone and sat down with a group of people in wheelchairs? We're assuming, we make assumptions. So yeah, I think inside organisations and inside companies, I think the biggest issue is that very male, white-led PR marketing departments who just, and whether it's just autonomous, they just automatically just scoop up, or whether it is that actually at the higher levels, that sphere of people that want the badges are that male, 45 plus, you know, 2.4 children, wife's at home looking after them. You know, that's that whole kind of gap. Yeah. You know, but I don't think inside, I think there's been a big change inside companies.
And so from accessibility, so career opportunities, visibility for not just established women with careers, but also the next generation. So you said the next generation, so the students, so from local colleges around here. Yeah. Are job opportunities visible? Do they exist? Experiences with this?
One of my mantras is often that you cannot be what you cannot see. Yeah. And I think it's up to women like ourselves to actually actively promote and put ourselves out there and say, do you know what, I've done this, people have said no to me, but I've pushed them to one side and shown that I can do it anyway, and you can do this as well. And actually, my hand skills aren't brilliant, or my technical knowledge isn't the greatest, but I have these other attributes that really lend themselves to this world of technology, and that's what I realise, and that's what I pride myself on.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going out to Northampton College tomorrow to speak to a group of BTEC students in business, to talk about technology and to talk about women founders in business, but the whole kind of breadth, and it is that put yourself into an environment where you can reach out to people. In all businesses and all industries. I mean, in the media industry, it's the same. Children tend to go into what they've seen through their lives. You know, they will follow. You know, we know that the London media scene is full of that sort of same kind of loveyism that they accuse the rest of the world for being. You know, but the same as technology. I grew up. My father was a manufacturer. You know, I would, you know, take a mallet and bang a print machine to get it into registration. I know we now have perfect lasers and everything else, but a mallet still works sometimes.
We've all still got hammers in our toolbox.
But you know, that was the experience, and yes, I had lots of other opportunities because of what he'd created and the wealth that he'd created and the opportunities it gave me. But it's funny how I ended up back on a factory floor, you know, albeit slightly more invited, but you know, the same. You were saying your dad was an engineer. We've got to reach out further and further to the children who haven't got the opportunities, haven't got that around them, and start to demonstrate that from, you know, through the primary age, through the way that we represent technology and careers in our programs and things like that. We've got to reach in and grab hold of them earlier and allow young children from whatever background to understand the opportunities that are there. Every child in a nursery will make stuff. Every single child. Children love Lego, they love all of that stuff. We've got to capture that and bring it through earlier and quicker.
But the issue is bigger than that, because it's kind of, there's for me 2 points where we lose people. So whilst all of us here are doing STEM work and we're going out and we're talking to young people and we're telling them that it's awesome and there's a career for you, and there's great careers because of this big retirement chunk that's going to happen in the next 10 years. But I think the problem is the education system as a whole, it's a post-industrial education system. We beat the living creativity out of every child. And with a child that's now going through, we're in year 11 now, I say we because I feel like I'm doing it all over again, and I would definitely fail because it is a million times harder than when I did it, or my grey matter's melted and I can't remember stuff. But it's like the stuff we are teaching children. So my son's doing GCSE engineering, not that I'm a pushy mum or anything, but it's like, I looked at the exam paper and I could not answer half the questions. And the other half of the question was just health and safety and rigour and cosh and all the stuff that I hate, because there are people who love that and that's their job. Do you know what I mean? And we end up with, we're beating the creativity out of these kids. So I think the problem is, yes, we engage at an early age. Yes, children have a natural desire to build and bash and mallet. And if you look at early play toys, it's all about linking together, connecting, Lego, still play with it, awesome. And it's kind of, but we kill them off at 2 points, and we kill off a mass of children through the education system. So I got our school to take on GCSE engineering, and we watched a natural drop off, and then we kill them off at the career end. So especially women, which is, and that's then about accessibility into the workplace. We do have the autonomy that we keep the world going, and we give birth and we have children, and if we decide to, and then there's the whole getting back into the workplace after you've built a career up, and those 2 points are where we lose people. And I think that's where we have to reflect more on STEM. We're all doing great work, we're all volunteering our time and stuff, and it's working, but we have to go up against the system, because now, and unfortunately that means going up against the joys of people who don't understand, they've already destroyed this. If you look at things like Steiner education and baccalaureate and the Swedes and the Scandinavian education system and that embracement of creativity, and then look at how amazing those engineers are and those people in tech. Do you know what I mean? And that's where we've got 2 problems. So I think at some point we have to reflect on STEM and say, well, it's great, we're reaching out, and we're like you, I've got one in 2 weeks' time, and part of the Silverstone, what do they call it now? It's a
Silverstone Park, but they've done it in partnership, or they've employed Gaia Innovation to.
So there's a big group of us out there doing this stuff, but I think we have to do 3 things as technology innovators. 1, we have to protect the status of what we are. So my biggest thing when I go in and talk to young people is, you say the word engineer and I get them to write down what they think that is, and mostly it's like a plumber, a mechanic, an electrician. There's nothing wrong with those trades, but they're not engineers. We need to protect the status like other countries do, like Germany and stuff like that, and make it feel important, because it is important. I think we have to go to the Department of Education and with big mallets and sort that out, because we're killing creativity. There's an amazing guy, Ken Robinson, watch his TED Talk, and it's all about how we kill creativity in children in education. And then the other one is then more about, and that's probably about us battling it as women and sorting out the workplace so that we don't lose what we've gained just because we go and have children. Now we could all just stop, and then we wouldn't have to engineer or tech anything, because eventually we would just die out as a population. The reality is that's one of the things we're engineered to do. So we shouldn't lose out because we're doing something that anatomically we're created to do.
Another question. So for students, female students who are thinking about entering engineering technology but potentially concerned or confused and just not sure what to do, but also you bring up a really good point, those slightly older ladies who have potentially been out of work because they're raising a family, who want to get back into technology or thinking about it as a new career, what advice could you give both the younger plus the slightly older female in our community?
I think it's the same advice. It's about playing to your strengths. And it's literally as simple as writing down maybe what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy, and actually figuring out what it is that you are good at. Because I guarantee you there is a place for you in tech somewhere, regardless of what those strengths are. I think nowadays, because tech is so ingrained into our daily lives, we all have that ability somewhere in that strength.
And technology opens up the flexibility. You know, when you're, as a mother, you can start to do things part-time. And one of the reasons I believe I got the Women in Innovation Award was because I was an older woman coming back into, you know, I had never stopped working, but I came back into a company, founded it in technology, and it was like, okay, that's all right. You know, you can take this slightly windy path. It doesn't have to be all the way down. I went off and did some other things, you know, learnt some other skills, brought some other things, brought them all back together into my technology business, and then started it then.
You're a great example as well, Rebecca, in that your career started and still are as a nurse, which I presume at the beginning when you were training as a nurse, you weren't thinking, I'm going to end up running a virtual reality based company.
No, I can't believe it. I really wish I could talk to child me and be like, you've got no idea what's coming. And especially 2020, it just sounds so cool. VR Therapies Centre opening 2020.
But it's
like,
amazing.
Every child would have been like, oh my God. So yeah, I mean, I had a major pivot. So I think I was about 30 when I decided that I needed to look into other options, and I'd hurt my back through nursing and kind of the same old story that a lot of nurses go through. And I was looking at different ideas, and that's why I started looking at the hydrotherapy. And then one day I just came across the VR with swimming with dolphins. So that's what triggered me. I wanted to bring that to the people that I know are going to benefit most from these therapies. So I've got no interest in STEM. So I still don't I know I'm starting to get used to it, that I'm under it. But like you're saying, I had no idea what engineers kind of encompasses. Like, I always thought it was things like you're saying. So if I'd heard things like that when I was at school, or if someone pointed out that I could do game design, I had no idea game design comes under STEM. And I think with the technology aspect, there's so many things that the kids would be so excited to get involved in. And you can do the engineering side of like the Raspberry Pi and kind of creating your own things, and the apps and video content, and then your own therapies with the AR and the VR and all the Rs. And whenever I talk to kids, they love it. But if you ask them if they're interested in STEM, none of them really say yes.
Blank face.
And especially with females. And when I was at school, I very much imagined lab coats and plumbers and things like that. And I wanted to help people. And I think that is part of the stereotype, but possibly truth in it with women. We traditionally have navigated more towards healthcare and social care positions. Men have gone more into the engineering of things. But we can really use that knowledge and experience, like you're saying. That's one of our major strengths, is our abilities in those roles. So joining up all together and finding the right team and everyone that complements the skills, we can only change the world for the better.
And I think it's that experience of female-led teams and male-led teams. And without sounding really sexist, all the female-led teams I've either been in or led tend to be a lot happier, a lot less sickness days, they deliver on time, everyone tends to have, you know, a better state of mind and gameplay and be more focused. Some of the male-led teams that I've been in can very easily go off course, they're very linear, you know, don't pick up on all the other issues that are going on, and depending on the strength of the or the dominating really of the personality of the male leader, you can end up with a lot of very unhappy people, you know, sick days, stuff like that. So I think it'd be a really interesting study for a university to do, especially in automotive. But I think that the key is to those groups where they want to make change or they want to go into something. I had a slightly different pathway because I feel extremely guilty as a mother of two that actually both of my kids were in nursery by 3 months old. Have I been a great mum? I don't know what a great mum is. Do you know what I mean? Like, I definitely haven't been a mother hen, but then I have two very strong, worldly children who've grown up in quite an adult world, who don't see any issues to any barriers, but they are both boys. But one of the things I've been very clear to teach them is about diversity and, you know, that we can do anything. And you know, it was quite funny. So on the 13th of December, my son turned around to me and said, I think you should quit engineering now and just go and be Prime Minister. but like in
Sally
my,
P for Prime Minister.
But in my son's mind,
I'd vote.
Mum can do anything. Do you know what I mean? And I think, you know, if you can nurture around you especially young men, I think, you know, modern masculinity is really, really important. I think We've spent a lot of time and money investing in women, investing in young girls and really spurring them on. I think now we have to invest in young men and teach that modern masculinity and teach them that we are all capable of anything. And I think once you crack that barrier, there's still issues of parents and the influence of parents on their children. But I mean, I'm very fortunate to be a school governor of a boys' school, and the work that goes in to teaching these young men, all sorts of young men from all sorts of backgrounds, to be accepting and to hug and to, you know, the fact that they can do anything and girls can do anything. And you've only got to look at the recent league tables that have come out for schooling. Boys are dropping down again. Now, are boys dropping down because we've put so much focus onto girls? Because I think girls have, you know, since Spice Girls and all that, I think we've all felt a bit empowered. Do you know what I mean? And there's been a lot of investment in empowering women, and we naturally empower each other. You know, stick a bunch of women in a room, they'll come out, they'll have solved all the problems to the world and drunk a lot of coffee. Do you know what I mean? I think that we have to focus on modern masculinity as well.
Yeah.
So whilst it's, you know, whilst it's International Women's Day and we can celebrate our achievements and, you know, those women before us and the women that are to come, if we don't embrace the young men in that journey, then we end up with more of a divide. Do you know what I mean?
I completely agree with you. I mean, I don't think if we focus too much on women, it's going to swing the other way, and we're now going to have a pale and female problem rather than a pale and male. And I think men are, you know, they're about 50% of the population. They need to be allies. We need to build one another up. That's the great world.
Totally agree. And that's where technology is amazing, because like I read some fascinating stuff about programmers in Japan. So there's paraplegic, you know, people.
What are you going to say?
Yeah, and they're doing all that programming.
I get excited just thinking about
from
it.
their bedroom and stuff, and you know, they're contributing. You know, as engineering moves into a world that is unknown to us in this country, we're not great programmers and software designers. It's not been the fabric of this country. We're hammer hitters, steel, material, cars, engines, you know, combustion.
But problem solvers in that sense, bringing all of that together and enabling those technologies to meet the requirements to deliver something at the end of it, something that is physical and tangible.
But it's great that technology is embracing people from around the world to contribute towards projects. So I'm really lucky, the company that I work with, we all work from home in the cloud, which my productivity is way more than going to office. I haven't got to listen to everyone's problems, and you know, there's this, there's that, there's fire alarms, and you have to leave, and you know, moving around different sites. My productivity is huge, and I think it's modern masculinity. I think, you know, if we have to set an agenda as women, we have to empower young men. We have to keep empowering young women so that it doesn't slip. I think we need to reach out to the stakeholders that are minority groups, whatever minority group that is, and use technology to embrace them and bring them in to our industry. And I think if we can do all of that, we end up as the most amazing society ever. But then there are things against us with legislation and regulation and education and the way that the education system is and stuff like that. So I think we have to turn our power as women, a bit like we did when we were wearing purple and getting run over by horses, you know, trying to get the vote. I think now we've empowered a lot of young women, a lot. I mean, I meet young women now and I'm like, whoa, God, you're way more confident than I ever was at like 13. Do you know what I mean? But also we have to look at how technology can be a negative. So where we've got issues, and I'm sure you see tons of this, with social media and influence and WhatsApp groups, and I've heard some horrendous things about how technology is like suicide pact groups in schools and all this type of stuff, so all being run through WhatsApp. So we also have to take some responsibility of how far we take technology. Technology and what you're doing is fascinating and amazing, and giving opportunity and engagement. You know, in manufacturing, we know we have to automate things because we're losing generations of people who want to do manual work. We need to remember, this country, our exports are 80% services. It's not 80%, you know, manufacturing. And it's kind of, you know, we have to look at the society as a whole and how we embrace everything. And it's tough. You know, we are the most connected we'd ever been, yet the most disconnected.
I think as well that we can be our own worst enemies.
Yeah.
We talked about, you know, in a group, women will empower women, but we can also completely disempower women. Yeah. We can be the first and the most critics of women who stay at home, or women who don't stay at home, or women who don't look good, or women who do look good. You know, the yummy mummies versus the, you know, slummy mummies, you know, you're like, we come up with, you know, we create all these movable communities and that side of things that can be supportive, but also can be, be very challenging. And, you know, when you go through with teenage girls, what they go through and what the stuff that they have to deal with now, I'm like, thank heavens I'm not a teenager now. And now we're telling them, yes, deal with all that stuff, but also you need to understand tech and you need to get this and you need to get this. I think to some extent, what we're trying to do is promote the positive of what's available, make it more visible, make it more accessible, bring more people in a much more natural way, rather than you should do this or you should do this or you should do this.
Boxing. You
know, which becomes is not a very female way of going about, but kind of started to become the conversation. What do we do about the lack of? I think we should just celebrate those that are there. And I'm really excited about the International Women's Day Trailblazers, because it's all about supporting and promoting historic women in technology, you know, those that really were the trailblazers, and then those of us that are sort of starting to do it now, and bringing that together to show that it's a journey that they can go on. You know, you don't have to get it all right now, but you can start to reach out and make some, you know, small changes that make a big deal.
But I think you made a really good point.
It's okay, Sally, because that's why we got you on the show, just because we know you love it.
But you made a really, really good point, and we've done exactly the same thing here. So we're being labelled as women in technology. Yeah. But we're more than women in technology. And I think a really good thing that I always teach people to do is asking that question of who am I, right? So we have society labels, we have labels we put on each other, we have organic labels, then we have the internal vision of who we are, we have who we are in our job, and I always say to people, when they're working through all this, and you can end up with hundreds of labels. You know, you're a daughter, a mother, a sister, or, you know, and then you're
going to start singing Alanis Morissette next.
Oh yeah. Well, I won't sing to anyone. That would be very dangerous. You know, I always say the question should be not who am I, but who am I not? Do you know what I mean? And I think the most important thing for everyone is to feel free, like free enough to be whoever it is you want to be. And that's where we have to trailblaze. We have to just open everything up and allow that huge pathway for people to go and experience things. And I've been loads of different things in my career until I settled to where I felt most comfortable. And I always encourage that with young women and young men and say, just go and try everything. When I have a go try it. Doesn't matter. This is not like my parent or your parent, where it's like you had to be in the same career for 20, 30, 40 years. That's what made someone really good at what they do. You know, flip it. Do something different every year. Every 6 months, you'll learn more. But we are very good at labelling people. And it's like, even given, you know me, my personality, how strong I am at work, I don't do the school run because I can't deal with the gate mums, because I feel guilty every time. Yeah. Because I feel guilty when they're there and they're talking about they've been to cardio tennis and they've walked their cockapoo and they've had
cardio tennis a thing?
It's a thing, Monday, 9 o'clock. And they've done this stuff, with their day, and I sit there thinking, wow, I've got my job, I've got my sideline thing that I do, I'm a school governor, I volunteer in my village, and you just think, how can you stand there and moan that you've done nothing? You've had a busy day. But it's about sense of perception, because I actually couldn't be a stay-at-home mum. I think it's the hardest job in the world. As much as I love my children, that is the hardest job in the world. Do you know what I mean?
I agree.
Right, we are, Sally. We're 39 minutes in.
Sorry, I'm really worried about this chat.
No, he's going to be finished in a minute because we're going to start winding this down. He's done well. 38 minutes. He's
had a stretch.
Honestly, in the gear. So
let's use that banana.
Yes, use that banana.
Not even going to comment on any of this. This is a PG show. Right, I'm going to do final question. One of the final questions, which is 10, 20 years time. What are your hopes? The question was, how has tech evolved? But actually, I think we need to broaden that out. How is this conversation evolved within the next 10, 20 years? If we get you back on, what do you think? What do you hope's happened?
Well, right now it's the topic, isn't it? It's that we've used resources. We started talking earlier about, it's not all about electrification, because then we're draining the world's resources. I think we can be a very connected community and society. People can connect with those that they associate with through technology, but also we've got to develop things that are far more responsible to the environment that we actually live in. And 20 years time, that's what I really want to see is that individual and community-based responsibility for your environment, and that to be existing on a global scale, and tech to have supported that, rather than be at this kind of juxtaposition that it feels at right now.
Rebecca, thoughts? Hopes for the next 10, 20 years' time. So realistically, where would you hope us to be? Okay.
VR, world domination.
Female domination.
Continue spreading and getting more and more women out there and showing our capabilities and getting more of a voice and things becoming more accessible. And obviously I'm really passionate about VR, so I'm just thinking about all the cool tech things that are coming, as well as our world domination.
Okay.
I think we're going to flip. So I think if you analyse, so if we've just shelved tech for 2 secs, if you analyse how we are consuming, and if you analyse the pressures on change, so for example, just the pressures on plastic usage, how supermarkets are being pressured by consumer values, on that side of things as consumers, I think we'll go back to how it was when I used to walk the high street with my gran, and used to go and get your meat from here, or maybe not meat, your soybeans from here, and your veggies from here, and your candlestick maker and all that. I think we will become a lot more, hopefully, community-based, community-centric. But I think where the tech thing comes in is we have to stop moving around. So in 10 to 20 years' time, I don't want to be driving 55 miles to come here and sit and talk to you. I love you, but I don't. Like, this should have been, this could be a connected conversation via either virtual reality in the same room, or via things we have already like Google Hangouts and Skype and stuff like that. We have to stop moving. We have to analyse where we live, how we consume, how we move, and we have to make it more acceptable to employers that it's okay, and this is where it will benefit women, that it's okay that you don't have to be in an office from 9 till 5. It's okay to have a 4-day working week. We have to look at the mental health, we have to look at how we live our lives, and that whole thing of, do you live to work or work to live? That's why you started your business, and that's why I've started, and I do what I do, is I work to live. And on the other side of that, it frees up more time so people can be more proactive and embracing. And we don't have 10 to 20 years to make the changes we need to do when it comes to the environment. It has to be now. And I think that's where technology has a really big opportunity. But we equally have to be careful. If we keep upgrading to the latest phone, we create more problems than having 5 million electric cars on the road. We have to think about responsibility in technology. We have to think about embracing community groups like you're doing, talking about how you take public services, which are huge financial drains. Do you know what I mean? How can you use technology? How can you use it as a therapy? How can you use it to automate manufacturing and then reposition humans into roles where we're connecting communities together? Like, people don't talk anymore. Do you know what I mean? Apart from about the cockapoos and the cardio tennis. But like, people don't sit really and talk. Exactly. And that's where you empower people. If you can have more conversations and more young people see, people in diverse roles, and we bring new technologies and new industries to the UK to repump our services industry into technology more, that's how I think we have to grow. But we shouldn't be sat here in 10 to 20 years' time doing this, as much as it's interesting. With the guy behind in the lycra. Yeah. Right, before we wrap up, because I'm going to wrap up in a second, anything else? Bar Sally? Anybody want to... I love you, that's why I got you on. Anybody else want to say anything else, whether it be about the business, about hopes for the future, whilst we've got you on air? I think the only thing I really want to say is I really want to shift from the negativity around women in technology and put it more on a positive spin. I think history is really important and we need to recognise that and we need to pay our dues to that. However, now it's like, I think we're all sat here because people have said no, but we've disregarded that and gone and done it anyway and proved that we can. And I think we need to be more positive around our successes and how we promote that message out there, and just say, do you know what, you can do it too. And if you want to find out about more fabulous women, come along, celebrate International Women's Day in however you want to, and especially come and do our Trailblazers quiz. Well, what we'll do, we'll make sure there's within the show notes and show links, we'll put in hyperlinks, website links for obviously every business you're involved in, but obviously the Trailblazers and anything else that can help any generation of female and male get involved in technology.
I think I'm going to pull this to a close if that's okay. So I just want to say big thank you to all four of you for coming on. For those that haven't done an individual podcast yet, definitely want to get you both on individually to talk about your businesses. Definitely, no doubt about it.
You can do it virtually.
We can do it virtually, absolutely. Why not? But thank you very much for coming on. I also want to thank Silverstone Sports Engineering Hub again for hosting us. Forgive me, I forget this chap's name behind me. Ethan, for doing 50 minutes worth of cycling for us in his branded gear. For those that haven't been here and for those that are interested in wind tunnel technology and aerodynamics, this is the place on Silverstone Park to do it. Inside Silverstone podcast is produced by the team at Longhurst. Today's production has been done in partnership with Digital Northampton. Aired during International Women's Week and International Women's Day, which for all of us is obviously very important. Thank you very much. Also, one final thing, iTunes reviews, 5-star reviews we need to get us up on the podcast listings, and also sort of reshare socially on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram.
All of the above.
All of the above.
Safely and responsibly.
And perhaps we can earmark a sort of cardio tennis podcast for a future one.
I'll send you the details.
Send me the
Clearly
details.
I'm not going.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Go girls!
Thanks, ladies.
The Inside Silverstone podcast is produced by the team at Longhurst for the benefit of those with a passion for all things tech, engineering and innovation. For more information, please visit longhurst.co.uk/Inside Silverstone, whilst also remembering to give us a 5 out of 5 star rating on iTunes. Please note that neither Chris Broome or Longhurst work for Silverstone Park, Silverstone Circuit or Silverstone Technology Cluster.